Hey there everyone, welcome back to my channel and to another Satisfactory video, where in my last video I did fully automate the assembly director systems, which is what all of this is over here, along with some of the manufacturers are also up there. And also the other thing I did talk about in my last video was seeing if I can get some nuclear power up and running. And so just to kind of summarize what I did say in my last video, I did want to build up a nuclear power plant, or a big nuclear power plant, so I didn't have to worry about power too much for the rest of the playthrough. And so for the past few days or so now, I've been doing I've been doing a ton of math, along with a ton of prep work. So like, well, crafting up, for example, the iodine filters, and then I had to fully automate fabric, and then a bunch of other stuff too. But anyways, so after all of that now, I have a plan now put in place for how I do want to get this nuclear power plant built up and everything. And so the actual amount of power that this nuclear power plant will be able to produce is 150,000 megawatts, which is a lot of power. And that also equals to exactly 60 nuclear power plants, which, I mean, in hindsight isn't super big, but it's definitely large. I mean, it is using up over half of the uranium in the entire world, so I would say it's pretty big. But anyways, though, if I go ahead and just look on the map here, you can see that I placed down a radar in this area right here in the swamp biome, because this is where I do want to build up the nuclear power plant. And so the reason why I chose this location specifically is because it has all of the resources I need in order to build it up. It has all of the limestone, copper, sulfur. It even has the nitrogen gas that I'm going to need in order to make the plutonium fuel rods. And it also does have a uranium node. Unfortunately, it is an impure node, which I am not going to be using actually, because I am going to need a total of 1200 uranium per minute, which equals out to both of these normal nodes right over here. And so actually, if I just head back to my main base over there, I actually did set up a hypertube launcher that will launch me all the way to the base. Now, I actually didn't do any work to the base. All I really did was place down the radar, which also means I did bring over power, as well as build out a bit of a, call it like, outline or whatever of how I want the general factory to look. But anyways, that now I'm actually up here on the top floor of my factory, you can see here that I have this huge hypertube launcher that will launch me all the way to the factory. And so if I just go ahead and launch myself, you can already see, well, I mean the entire map, but you can also see the power lines that I hooked up leading all the way to the swamp biome. And so that now I'm actually here at the swamp biome here, you can already see that, well, like I mentioned earlier, I did make an outline here. Now, of course, the factory, or the whole power plant, is going to be extremely bigger than this, or it's going to be way bigger than this. But this outline right here is for the first part of the factory, which is making the uranium fuel rods, which is what I want to focus in today's video. Now, of course, I just real quickly want to mention that it is impossible, or it's going to be impossible, to build this whole thing all in one video and still make it like under an hour long. So I am going to split it up into a few different parts. Or actually, to be more specific, it's going to be split up into 4 different parts. So the first part here is going to be building up all of the machines needed to make the uranium fuel rod, which I am going to be making, 12 uranium fuel rods per minute? I think that's how much I'm making. But anyways, so that's the first part. The second part is actually setting up the nuclear power plants, all 60 of them, somewhere out in the ocean over there. And now the reason why I want to set it up out on the ocean there is because the nuclear power plants do require a ton of water in order for them to run. So that's another reason why I chose the swamp, is because, well, there's a ton of water nearby. And so now the third and fourth part of the building process is going to be, well, the plutonium refinement. And so the third part is going to be making the non-fissile uranium. seeing how there is a huge production grapevine, or whatever you want to call it, involved with making just the non-fissile uranium. And then the fourth and final part will be making the plutonium fuel rods, which does require the particle accelerators here, which are also super massive, I want to point out. But anyways, like I did mention, the thing that I want to focus on in today's video is just building up all of the stuff required to make the uranium fuel rods, and also belting it together and getting it all powered and stuff. And so I actually think building up all of the machines is the easy part. The hard part is going to actually be getting all of the raw materials over to the base. Because if I just go ahead and take a look at my notes here, it's going to require caterium, copper, iron, coal, sulfur, water, limestone, and then of course the uranium in order to, well, make the uranium fuel rods. Now, some of these things are going to be easy to get. Like the iron and copper, for example, are going to be pretty easy, seeing how, well, there's one copper ore node right there, there's another one over there, and it's even a pure node. And there you can see iron ore nodes over there. Pretty simple stuff. And then limestone, I also forgot to mention limestone, is also going to be needed, but you can already see there's a pure limestone node right there. There's another normal node right there. But now the hard materials that I'm going to have to get would be the caterium, because it's all the way over there, but still not quite that difficult. Like, it's not that far away. And then the coal, which is also all the way over here. And then of course the sulfur, which I think the nearest sulfur node is right over there, and it is an impure sulfur node. But if I do look all the way over here, there is a pure sulfur node right next to a pure coal node, which actually works out really nicely. That means I can just have a small belt highway from this area of the map all the way to my nuclear power plant setup for both the coal and sulfur, which actually works out really nicely. And also the nitrogen gas is also nearby, so I can use the same highway for that later on also. But anyways, the hardest material to actually get over to the nuclear power plant area is going to be, well, the uranium, simply because both of the nodes I want to use are right over here. And now, like I did mention earlier, the reason why I'm not using the impure node is because I do need 1200 uranium per minute. And seeing how an impure node can only produce 300 uranium per minute with a fully overclocked Mark III miner, it really doesn't make any sense for me to use it, which is why I'm going with both of the normal nodes located over here and over here. And so as far as actually belting it over to the main base goes, I was thinking about using a train that goes in a bit of a loop here from this node all the way back to the main base, and then I would take this node and just belt it over to this node. Anyways though, I really don't want to go too much into detail about that because that's way later in the future. So yeah, I'm going to worry about all that later. For right now though, I'm going to worry about getting all of the machines set up. And so that's what I'm going to be doing now for the next few minutes anyway. And of course, I will update you guys when I am finished building up, well, at least all of the smelters and other like first step processes involved in making the uranium. And just like that, I did fully build up all of the smelters and the concrete constructors over there. And I also did build up this watchtower right here, or sorry, control tower. Now, I mean, it isn't the nicest looking thing in the world, but I mean, I think it looks good enough, and it also gets the job done, so I mean, I'm pretty happy with it. But anyways, like I just mentioned, I built up all of the smelters and the concrete constructors over there, and it was pretty straightforward to get them all set up. The only annoying thing about building them was, since I made the blueprints using the Mark IV belts, I had to go over, well, all of these and change them out to Mark V belts. So that was pretty much the only annoying thing, if you will. But yeah, and also the other thing too, the way I have it organized is also pretty straightforward. So I have the caterium line here, along with some of the copper over here, and the rest of the copper over here. And now the reason why I have the copper separated like that is because all of these refineries are going to be feeding the copper sheet constructors that are going to be used alongside the quick wire to make the AI limiters. And then the rest of these smelters over here are going to make the copper wire that then goes into making the cable, I think, that is then used with the steel to make all of the stators I need for the electromagnetic control rods. So pretty straightforward stuff over there. I also have the limestone and concrete stuff set up over here. And the other thing I also do want to mention is, I know I have all of the numbers written down on my notes, but just to make it a bit easier on myself, I did rewrite all of the numbers down on some signs, so I don't always have to, you know, go and look at my notes all the time. But yeah, so I did write down all of the numbers I need for each input, so pretty simple stuff. The only thing that I didn't build up here was the 15 refineries I need to make the sulfuric acid. I did forget to build that up, so I am gonna have to build that up also. And as far as where I want to put that, actually, I'm probably just going to keep expanding out this platform over this way. So yeah, I think that's going to be the general idea of how I'm going to place down those refineries there anyways. But from there, I then have to now build up all of the constructors for making the quick wire, copper sheet wire, what else? The steel pipes, the steel beams, you know, all of that stuff. So I need to get all of that belted up and built up now. And like with everything else, I will update you guys when I am done doing all of that. Or before I just go ahead and build them up, I thought I explained like what the general idea of how I want to place everything down. And so, I mean, it's pretty straightforward, like I did mention. So like I have all of the smelters and stuff lined up in a row. So from here, if I actually go to the blueprints, and for example, getting all of the quick wire done, I would just go to here, place down the constructors, let's say somewhere like here, and just get all of the quick wire built up like that. Same thing with the copper sheets, copper wire, steel pipes, and steel beams over there. So as far as the layout goes, it's pretty straightforward. And I mean, you'll guys see it here in a second, how I have it laid out and everything. But yeah, anyways, from here, I'm going to go ahead and update you guys when I'm done building up all of the constructors. And after about a few hours here, I did finally finish building up all of the constructors that I need. And so just looking from up here, the first row of constructors I did build was all of the quick wire constructors that are going to be needed to make all of the AI limiters. And then all of these constructors over here are used for, well, making all of the copper sheets that are also going to be needed for the AI limiters. And then all the way down here are the copper wire constructors that are going to be used with the steel pipe constructors over here to make all of the stators I need in order to make the electromagnetic control rod. And then over here, I have all of my steel beams I need that are going to be used to make the encased industrial beams I need that are also used in making the uranium, what is it, control rods? Or no, it's the encased uranium cells, that's right. But anyways, from there, I built up all 15 refineries that I need for the sulfuric acid. And so you can see that these 3 refineries here at the end are separated from the rest of them. And that's pretty simple. And that's because each of these refineries produces 50 sulfuric acid each, which means I can only hook 12 of them up to the same line before the pipe gets backed up, because one Mark II pipe can only handle 600 fluid per minute. And that goes the same too with the water, because it also requires 50 water per minute, so I also have it separated here as well. And I also just saw I totally forgot to hook up the sulfur up to the sulfuric acid, so I'm gonna have to do something like that there anyways. I also did hook up all of the water extractors too, seeing how I did only need 3 of them, so nothing too bad there. But anyways, from here, I am going to go ahead and build up all of the assemblers, if I even have room for them. I mean, there's not a whole ton of room left, and I have to somehow fit in an extra 50 assemblers, which is a ton of assemblers, by the way. And also, I was really hoping on avoiding building this out more, because I do want to save like all of this ocean area for, well, all of the nuclear power plants, because they absorb a whole ton of water, and I'm not really sure how far out the ocean goes before you hit the world border. So I don't know, I might actually have to build up a second floor, which I was not expecting actually. I mean, I might have to build up a second floor anyways, even if I did expand it out, because I'm gonna have to build up, what is it, another 24 blenders to make up the encased uranium cells. So yeah, I mean, I think I'm just gonna have to build up a second floor. And also, another thing I do want to kind of point out is that this project is taking way longer than I thought it was going to take. So this video is definitely coming out a lot later than I usually post out videos. So I apologize for posting this out a lot later than I usually do. But I mean, you can clearly see that this is a huge project I'm working on. So hopefully you guys understand. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and spend the next few hours now trying to build up all of the assemblers now and seeing what kind of problems that brings along with it. But I mean, you guys will find out what problems I'm gonna have in just a few seconds here. And you know what? Surprisingly, there actually wasn't a whole lot of problems building up all of the assembler. And also the other thing that, well, also surprised me was I actually didn't need to build any of the assemblers on the second floor here, which is really good. But yeah, so like I just said, managed to fit all of the assemblers on the first floor here. So you can see, starting from this end of the factory here, I built up all of the AI limiters here, of which I'm making 60 per minute. And then if I just go ahead and make my way over this way, this is where I put all of the stator assemblers, which actually was kind of annoying to do because I needed 18 assemblers. And so, well, I had a hard time trying to cram it all in, kind of like in this kind of condensed form I have here. Because before, what I did was I just laid out 18 assemblers all in one line, but then I realized I wouldn't have enough room for pretty much anything else. So then, well, after some, well, like I said, headaches and problems later, I did manage to squeeze it all into 2 rows here, which was really nice. And then I have 6 assemblers over there making the encased industrial beams. And then over here I have all of the electromagnetic control rods, which is all good and great and stuff. But now the last thing, or the last 2 things I need to add to this factory to fully complete it are the 24 blenders and the 30 manufacturers. That's a lot of blenders and manufacturers. I mean, all 30 manufacturers are making the uranium fuel rods. And then all of the blenders are making all of the encased uranium cells. And yeah, I mean, this is going to be an absolutely massive project all on its own. And it's going to take up a whole ton of time too. I mean, it's literally 30 manufacturers that I need to fully set up. That's a ton of manufacturers. So it's actually a really good thing that I managed to fit all the assemblers down on the first level, which pretty much leaves me all of this area up here to place all of that stuff down, which is great. Although building the blenders, I just want to point out, is going to be super annoying because mainly due to the sulfuric acid, and that's because I have 720 sulfuric acid total being made here, which in itself isn't too big a problem. But you see, when making the encased uranium cells, you also have a byproduct of sulfuric acid, which means I'm going to have a total of 240 sulfuric acid as a byproduct that I'm going to have to then kind of shuffle back in with the other like 720 line of sulfuric acid. Although I do have an idea for that, and that is I merge the 240 sulfuric acid I'm going to be making as a byproduct with this line of 3 assemblers, or sorry, 3 refineries up here, to then make a total of, oh no, what would that be? 360 sulfuric acid per minute or something like that? Because I'm making 120 here, right? Yeah, I'm making 120 here, so that is one way of going about it. Oh no, it's gonna be kind of weird how I'm gonna have to type all that up and everything. And also another thing that I'm probably, or actually no, you know what? I can guarantee you I'm not gonna get it done in today's video, and that is actually belting up all of the like raw resource, so like the copper, the deuterium and stuff. So I might have to do that off camera, but the one thing that is going to be super hard to belt over is of course the uranium, like I mentioned earlier in today's video. Seeing how I have the 2 normal nodes all the way over here in the red forest, that needs to make its way all the way over here in the swamp biome where I have the massive factory. So that's probably something I'm going to have to get done in, well, the next video. But anyways, that is future me problems for right now though. I can go ahead and try and make up the 24 blenders and 30 manufacturer and see how well that goes anyway, see what kind of headaches I'm gonna run into and stuff. But you know what, you'll guys find out in a few seconds how good or bad it went for me. And yeah, so like always, I will update you guys when I am done building up all the manufacturers and blenders. And after many hours later, I have now finally fully built up all of the blenders and manufacturers, and I'm actually pretty proud I managed to get all of it done, because at first it was like really intimidating to get all of this done, but I managed to do it in the end. And also, by building up all of the blenders and manufacturers, I am done building all of the machines, more or less anyways, that I need in order to make the uranium fuel rods, which is also really good. But anyways, to kind of explain what's going on here, I am going to start with the blenders and then make my way over to the manufacturers. And so starting with the blenders here in this back corner right here, you can see that I have the sulfuric acid refineries hooked up to the blenders, obviously. And the way I do have it hooked up is actually quite interesting, because all of these refineries are making 720 sulfuric acid per minute, which is not enough to fit all in one pipe, obviously. But the other interesting part too is, in order to make the encased uranium cells, it also has a byproduct of some sulfuric acid as well. And so the way I solved this was pretty well simple, and that is I took the 600 pipeline here of sulfuric acid and piped it over to 18 out of the 24 blenders here, and then I took the second pipe here, the one that's only producing the leftover 120 per minute, merged it with the output sulfuric acid lines with these blenders, so now they're merged together and can feed the remainder blenders all the way at the end here, which would include these two blenders and then these row of blenders right there. So pretty simple stuff on that end. And then the other thing the blenders also require is concrete, which again is honestly pretty simple. I just brought over a bell elevator right there that is then split off into the blenders. Pretty simple stuff. And then finally, the last thing, the uranium, is going to be actually quite interesting, seeing how I still need to build up the train line to bring the uranium from the red forest all the way over here, all the way back to base. But anyways, I'm going to have to deal with that later, but for right now, I am going to go ahead and explain the manufacturers to you, which was also quite simple to set up. Also, another thing I do want to mention with the blenders here, the way I do have it organized is I do have 6 rows of 4 blenders to make 24 blenders, if you were wondering that. And with the manufacturers, I have 5 rows of 6 manufacturers. And so the way I belted everything up here is also pretty straightforward. So the encased uranium cells all merge together over here. I have forgotten to do the belt work, but they are all supposed to merge up to this merger right here, where it goes into this belt elevator right here, or sorry, conveyor lift, where it is then split off throughout all of the manufacturers. Pretty simple stuff. And then as far as the encased industrial beams and electromagnetic control rods, also pretty simple. So I brought over the electric magnetic control rods or whatever over all the way over here, belted them up the same way I did with everything else. And then the encased industrial beams are also just pretty simply belted over right there. Didn't have to travel too much. And yeah, so it was actually pretty simple to set all of this up. Not too many headaches, I would say. The only headaches I had was when building up the blueprint for the blenders here, because I had to make a new blueprint, I did forget to add the output lines or output pipeline for the blender, so I had to go back and rebuild the output pipelines for all of these, which was kind of annoying. And as far as the manufacturers goes, the only kind of annoying part I would say was trying to evenly line it up on the second floor here. Apart from that, it was pretty simple to just place down all of the blueprints and build it over and stuff. So overall, pretty simple. And so from here, I am now gonna have to go ahead and belt over all of the raw resources, so like the copper ore, the iron ore, the caterium, and all of that stuff. which I did mention earlier is going to be pretty simple, seeing how pretty much most of the resources are just in the swamp biome right here. The only interesting resources that are going to be kind of, well, not hard to get, but maybe a bit annoying, are this coal node right here and this sulfur node, which I'm going to be using both of these nodes to feed both the coal and sulfur for, well, the factory. And I say it might be a bit annoying too, just because, I mean, it's not really the distance, but it's the terrain. So like you can see there, I think that's I believe that's the sulfur node right there, right? Or is that something else? Oh, that might be the iron ore there. But anyways, the point I'm trying to make though is it might be a bit annoying to grab these nodes over here because it looks like they're on two different levels, and then I have to bring them down to the main level here. So like I said, bit annoying, but definitely the toughest resource to get over to the factory itself is the uranium, which I have had a few days to think about it now, in between building the base and everything, on how I want to bring it over. And so the way I want to bring it over is I'm just going to have one train station over here, and I'm going to belt over this node over to here and just have the one train station, just so I can have the throughput rates a little bit better than having two stations anyway. At least that's my reasoning for it. And it'll also just be an easier setup if I only have like a point A and point B instead of like a point A, B, and C and stuff. So that's my 2 cents on why I'm doing it that way instead of making two separate train stations. But anyways though, I am gonna have to build a train station, at least two train stations, regardless of what plan I go for. And yeah, so from here, I'm gonna go ahead and build up the train station and build up all of the raw resources and see how that goes anyway. Alright, I have now fully finished building up all of the belt highways, or finished belting up all of the raw resources I need for the nuclear fuel rod factory here to run. And so you can see here, the way I actually got it to the base here is quite simple. I just built up, well, this huge belt highway here to bring over the copper, limestone, iron, some more limestone, and the caterium. So that's what this line is here for. And then the second line all the way over there, you can kind of see it right there, is bringing over all of the coal and sulfur I need for the base. And then the train, as well as I explained earlier, is bringing all of the uranium. And you can even see the train line make its way up over into the red forest over there. Or that's not the red forest, but it making its way there anyways though. So with everything now kind of hooked up, I now believe I am ready to actually turn on the factory. But the way I'm going to turn it on is actually quite interesting. Because if I actually go down to the belt highway intakes, you can see that I've actually cut them off. And that goes the same for the other belt highway at the end there, and also the train. And now the reason why I did that is because since this is running a nuclear power plant, it is crucial that all of these machines run at exactly 100% efficiency, which means I need to have all of these machines fully saturated as soon as possible. And so the way I've kind of come up with a way of making sure all of the machines are saturated as soon as possible is actually quite simple. So the first step here is, well, turning on the power, but then the second step is, since none of the intake belts are actually hooked up to any of the factories here, or any of the machines, nothing's actually going to be running here in the main factory. What's going to happen is all of the raw resources are going to make it to the end of their lines here, and then it's going to back up. And actually, if I do zoom in here, you can see at the top of the belt highways, I actually did put some of the cargo containers there to back up the, well, raw resources. In this case, copper for that one, and then limestone and iron, and then more limestone, caterium, you get the idea. And so I'll leave that to do its thing for, let's say, maybe 10 or 15 minutes for it to back up. And then I'll connect the raw resources to the smelters, where it will then fully saturate very quickly because I had a ton of backed up, well, raw resources. And then when the refineries get backed up, I will then connect them to the constructors, and then the constructors to the assemblers, and then the assemblers over to wherever else they go, so on and so forth. But anyways, that is kind of the idea of how I want to fully saturate the base. Now, I do realize I could have totally just put everything on their own separate power grid. So like smelters on one, assemblers on a second one, so on and so forth. But you see, the problem with that is that, well, it would require, well, a ton of breakers, and I really don't have that much room for breakers, and it would be kind of like really confusing just having a bunch of wires going everywhere also. So to make things simple, I decided to do it this way instead. And so, of course, in order to start that process, we need to go ahead and turn on the main breaker, so that now I am all the way up here in my control tower where I do have the main breaker set up here for the nuclear fuel rod production area. I am real quickly gonna go ahead, save my game, and then turn it on. Okay, that now I just saved my game, I am gonna go ahead, flip the breaker, and you can already see on my main power grid the max consumption went from about 18,000 to 26,000. Or sorry, 25,800 megawatts, which actually isn't that big a boost. I was expecting it to be a bit worse than that, but honestly, I'm not complaining too much about that anyways. But from here, if we go ahead and zoom in on the miners here, you can already see copper is starting to make its way out onto the belt. And you can already see all of the raw resources making its way on the conveyor highways, which also looks pretty cool, by the way. I mean, look at all of that. But as planned, you can see that it's going to start backing up, which is what we want. And yeah, so pretty much from here, I'm going to go ahead and leave it for the next, well, like I said, maybe 10-15 minutes and see what happens when I connect all of the belts and everything. All right, so I've been sat here now for a few minutes, and I do believe everything is sufficiently backed up in the cargo containers over there and everything. So I am going to go ahead and hook all of the belts up and see what happens here. So I'm just going to go ahead, like I said, start hooking them up. So there you go. They're going to all start going towards their areas right there. So you can already see the copper is making it into the copper area. The iron is flowing into the smelters over there. The limestone is going where the limestone needs to go. And over here, of course, I need to hook up the coal and sulfur. So I can just go ahead and do something like this. And they should all be flowing into their areas. So now I should be making sulfuric acid, which I am. Perfect. And so now, like I mentioned before, from here I am now going to leave it to run for maybe about a half hour, maybe a bit longer than that, just for everything to saturate properly. But yeah, you can see here it's almost a continuous flow of just all the raw resources I need, which is perfect. It's going to back up all the machines a lot more quickly than if it were to just try and back up the machines from the start. But anyways, like I did mention, I do need to now leave it to run for a few minutes, or not a few minutes, maybe more like a few hours. Maybe that's even too long. I don't know, leave it for, I don't know, however long it takes for all of the smelters and everything to get backed up anyways. So I'm going to go ahead and update you guys when that's fully done. Alright, so I have left the computer on now for, no, I would say about 20 minutes or so. So not too long. But you can already see that the caterium, copper, and iron are fully backed up already. And it just seems like the limestone is the only thing that still needs to be fully backed up here, which is fine. I mean, limestone is going to just take forever, so that was to be expected. The one thing I did forget to do, looks like, is send over my uranium train all the way over to my uranium nodes. So if I just go ahead into here, click Q, it looks like I need to edit the timetable still. So if we go ahead, uranium pickup and then uranium drop off, something like that. And then turn on self-driving. It should make its way over to the uranium, which, by the way, I'm actually kind of curious about. So you guys can come along for the ride over to the uranium area if you want. But yeah, I mean, I just real quickly want to point out that, like, getting all of the train tracks, or all of the train tracks, the one train track all the way over to the uranium area was just an absolute pain to do. Like, I mean, I just kind of gave up halfway through and didn't really care where it went or whatever. I mean, you can already see it's kind of going wherever. And if we look on the map here too, you can see that it's kind of following the river here because, I mean, look at the areas around it. Like, you can't exactly fit a train track through there. But anyways, you can see here that I am now making my way over to the uranium area. So you can see the train station is right over there, and you can see that it is braking, and it looks like all of the uranium nodes are also backed up, which is great. But it should come in, stop, and then load up on uranium, which is what it looks like it's doing. So there you go, it's lifting the uranium up. It is then going to place it down on the train, and then we are going to make our way back. And from here, yeah, there you go, it is now on its way back to base. The one thing I also do like about how I designed this is that it's only using the one track to go back and forth, so I didn't have to make like a full loop, which is also really nice. But yeah, I mean, from here, I am gonna go ahead, ride the train back to base, and see how the uranium makes it through the system and see if I broke anything or not anyways. Alright, then now I'm back at base here. I'm just gonna go ahead and get out. Oh yeah, that's right. That now the uranium train is all the way here, transporting the uranium. That means that the whole uranium factory here is now gonna actually be irradiated fully. Which again isn't a problem. I mean, it's a uranium factory. You're kind of expecting that. Looks like it's not unloading though. Why is it not? No, set to unload, please. Oh, and it's gonna go back. I mean, that isn't a huge deal, seeing how, well, I'm not running anything yet, so it's not that big a deal, but yeah, that could have been problematic if I didn't catch that sooner. But anyways, the other thing I also did hook up to both ends of the uranium belts here are awesome sinks to sink any extra uranium nodes, any extra uranium ore I might have, just so the train station here isn't backed up and it won't break the train. The other thing I also do quickly want to mention is I have 302 awesome tickets in there, which I think is pretty funny. But anyways, though, you can see that I have awesome sinks on both sides set up here just to get rid of the extra uranium ore, if I have any, that is, because these are smart splitters, so I am only dumping any overflow I do have. But yeah, anyways, I think from here I am gonna actually go ahead and end the video. Now, I do know that I didn't fully saturate all of the machines yet, but I am gonna go ahead and do that off camera, just because, I mean, it's not exactly super interesting or entertaining just seeing all of the machines filled. So I am gonna go ahead and do that off camera. But yeah, anyways, from here, I just want to say thank you for watching today's video. I really hope you guys did enjoy today's video. I know I enjoyed today's video. And if you guys could please like and subscribe to the channel, that would really help me out a lot, and I really do appreciate it. And yeah, thank you for watching today's video. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.